the focus of all those documentaries and Hollywood movies. But there's one version of Titanic we have never seen until this morning.
Get ready for the discovery of a lifetime. An old camera, lost deep in the ocean for over a century, has been found containing photos that offer a new perspective on the Titanic's tragic voyage. According to Joe Rogan, this may reveal the truth about Titanic that we didn't know about. What could these photos reveal about the final hours of the Titanic? Are we about to uncover details that have remained hidden beneath the waves for more than 100 years? Let's dive into this extraordinary find and see what secrets lie waiting in the deep.
You won't find skeletons. The bones actually dissolve into solution very rapidly at that depth.
Chapter 1. The story behind the Titanic. The Titanic, known for being the largest ship to set sail when it embarked on its voyage in April 1912, built by the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, it was a symbol of human engineering prowess, stretching about 882 feet in length and weighing over 52,000 tons. People truly believed in the Titanic's strength, often dubbing it unsinkable due to its state-of-the-art safety features, including watertight compartments and automatic watertight doors. So what did an old camera found deep in the ocean with mysterious pictures from the Titanic reveal about this horrifying incident? The Titanic represented the peak of luxury travel. First-class passengers enjoyed lavish cabins, fine dining, and grand social spaces that rivaled the best hotels. Even third-class accommodations were designed to offer a level of comfort unprecedented for the time. The ship was a floating microcosm of the early 20th century society, with passengers ranging from the wealthiest tycoons and celebrities to hopeful immigrants dreaming of a new life in America. Yet for all its grandeur and perceived invincibility, the Titanic's maiden voyage ended in tragedy. On the night of April 14th, just 4 days into its journey from Southampton to New York City, the Titanic struck an iceberg. The collision tore open several of its supposedly watertight compartments. The ship that was believed to be unsinkable began to fill with water, and in just over 2 hours, it broke apart and sank to the bottom of the North Atlantic. The sinking of the Titanic was a huge shock to the world. Over 1,500 of the approximately 2,100 passengers and crew on board perished, making it one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. The tragedy was worsened by the fact that there were not enough lifeboats for everyone on board, a grim oversight that contributed to the high death toll. The Titanic's sinking led to significant changes in maritime laws and safety protocols, including the requirement for ships to carry enough lifeboats for all passengers and crew. But before the tragedy happened, there were many strange signs that hinted that something bad was about to happen. Chapter 2. Prelude to Tragedy. How exactly did the Titanic tragedy occur in the first place? Before the Titanic's tragic end, there were several ominous signs and overlooked warnings that hinted at the impending disaster. One such incident occurred right at the beginning in Southampton. As the Titanic set sail, its massive size and the force of its propellers caused the nearby docked ship, the SS New York, to break free from its moorings and drift dangerously close. This near collision was a startling moment, causing a delay in the Titanic's departure. Though a crisis was averted thanks to quick action by the Titanic's crew and tugboats, this incident could have been seen as an early warning sign of the potential dangers that lay ahead. As the Titanic made its way across the North Atlantic, it received several iceberg warnings from other ships. Despite these alerts, the Titanic continued at full speed, with the belief in its invincibility perhaps overshadowing the caution required in such icy waters. The night was calm and clear, which ironically made spotting icebergs more difficult without the breaking waves they usually stir up. These warnings, unfortunately, were not given the attention they needed, contributing to the ill-fated decisions that night. Adding to the mystery of the Titanic's journey was the story of Jenny, the ship's cat. Ship's cats were common at the time, kept as both good luck charms and practical solutions to controlling the rat population on board. Jenny, in particular, had made her home on the Titanic, cared for by the crew in the galley. Legend has it that Jenny had recently given birth to a litter of kittens, and, in the days leading up to the Titanic's departure, she mysteriously moved her kittens off the ship one by one when it docked in Southampton. Joseph Mulholland, an Irish stoker who had grown fond of Jenny and her kittens, saw this as a bad omen. Heeding what he interpreted as Jenny's premonition, Mulholland decided to leave the ship, a decision that likely saved his life. Chapter 3. The Incident. Despite all these warning signs, the ship was about to face a horrible tragedy. On the night of April 14, 1912, one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history occurred. The disaster began to unfold at approximately 11:40 p.m. under a starlit sky. The Titanic, navigating the icy waters of the North Atlantic, collided with an iceberg. The impact was not a direct hit, but rather a glancing blow along the ship's starboard side. This seemingly minor collision was, in fact, fatal due to the iceberg's jagged underwater spur, which tore a series of gashes along the hull. The Titanic's innovative design included a double-bottom hull and 16 watertight compartments, equipped with automatic watertight doors that could be activated manually or automatically in the event of a breach. Despite these advanced safety features, the iceberg's impact caused the steel plates of the hull to buckle, allowing seawater to overflow from one compartment to the next, a scenario the ship's designers had not fully anticipated. The compartments were not capped at the top, so as the bow dipped lower, water spilled over into adjacent sections, further accelerating the sinking. The frigid water of the North Atlantic, estimated to be around 28 degrees Fahrenheit that night, worsened the situation, reducing the time for rescue operations. As the Titanic began its final descent, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the vessel into darkness and adding to the terror of those still on board. The design was deemed revolutionary, but ultimately contributed to the tragedy. This tragic flaw in the Titanic's design showed the importance of preparing for worst-case scenarios. As the situation grew increasingly dire, distress signals were sent out, and the crew began to uncover the lifeboats. Despite being capable of accommodating over 3,500 people, the ship only had lifeboats for about 1,178. This deficiency was a result of outdated maritime safety regulations and the belief in the ship's unsinkable nature. The evacuation was chaotic and disorganized. Lifeboats were launched with seats unfilled, partly due to initial disbelief among passengers and crew about the severity of their predicament. The women and children first policy was inconsistently applied, leading to further confusion and inequity in the allocation of lifeboat seats. By 2:20 a.m., less than 3 hours after the collision, the Titanic's broken stern rose into the air before sinking into the depths of the Atlantic, taking with it over 1,500 lives. The Carpathia, responding to the Titanic's distress calls, arrived approximately an hour and a half after the Titanic sank. Upon its arrival, the Carpathia navigated through ice fields to reach the Titanic's last known position. The survivors, some in shock and others in mourning, were greeted with blankets, warm drinks, and medical attention. Captain Arthur Rostron of the Carpathia became a hero for his decisive actions that night, later being awarded the Congressional Gold Medal by the United States Congress for his efforts. Chapter 4. Unraveling the Mysteries. However, it seems the mystery of the Titanic is not yet solved. Recently, in the depths of the Atlantic, the discovery of an old camera has brought to light new images that offer a fresh perspective on the Titanic tragedy. Among the photos, one particularly haunting image stands out of a woman tightly clutching her belongings, her face filled with the anticipation of an uncertain fate. This moment frozen in time, highlights the human element amidst the technological marvel and ensuing disaster of the Titanic. So what do these photos mean for the future of the Titanic? The old camera's photos have reignited discussions around key aspects of the Titanic's story, notably the lifeboat insufficiency. Interestingly, despite the capacity for more, the decision to limit the number of lifeboats was partly influenced by aesthetic and practical considerations, prioritizing deck space and the ship's luxurious appearance over safety. The existing lifeboats were enough to meet the British Board of Trade's regulations, which were based on the ship's tonnage rather than its passenger capacity, a reflection of the regulatory shortcomings of the time. This insufficiency was a grim oversight, as the ship was designed to carry up to 32 lifeboats. Furthermore, the crew's lack of training and drills meant that the lifeboat launch process was chaotic and inefficient, with many boats being lowered into the water only partially filled. Regulations of the era, based on outdated standards, did not mandate a lifeboat capacity based on the number of passengers, leading to a tragic shortage. The haunting images from the old camera bring this reality into sharper focus, illustrating the dire situation faced by passengers and crew as the ship met its icy end. Another mystery that the photos bring to light is the coal fire theory. The fire, which reportedly started even before the Titanic left Belfast, was not an unusual hazard, but its persistence and intensity were notable. Crew members attempted to manage the blaze during the voyage, but the fire was still burning when the Titanic collided with the iceberg. Prior to the Titanic's departure, a fire had broken out in one of its coal bunkers, a common occurrence on steamships of the time. Experts suggest that the prolonged exposure to high temperatures could have made the steel hull more brittle at the impact site, significantly compromising the ship's structural integrity. This would mean that the iceberg impact, while devastating, was exacerbated by a pre-existing vulnerability. However, some believe that this fire might have weakened the ship's steel structure, worsening the damage when the iceberg struck. The old camera photos, showing dark marks on the hull, have fueled speculation that the fire might have played a significant role in the ship's fate. This revelation suggests that a series of unfortunate events and overlooked dangers contributed to the tragic outcome. The old camera has also resurrected the eerie "no Pope" hull number myth. This peculiar tale adds to the many myths surrounding the Titanic. The misinterpretation of the hull number as an ominous message sparked rumors and superstitions among the shipyard workers, reflecting the tensions and fears of the time. Some believe that the ship's hull number, when viewed in a mirror, spelled out "No Pope," a message that was taken as a bad omen, particularly by the Catholic workers at Harland and Wolff, the shipyard where the Titanic was built. The belief in such omens and the power of superstition among the workforce highlights the human aspect of the Titanic's construction, a reminder that the ship's story is one of engineering and tragedy and of the people who built it. While this theory has been largely debunked, as Titanic's actual hull number was 401, it remains a part of the lore surrounding the ship, adding a layer of mystique to its tragic story. The endurance of such myths in the Titanic narrative speaks to our fascination with uncovering hidden meanings and seeking explanations for inexplicable events. Perhaps one of the most intriguing theories rekindled by the camera's discovery is the possibility that the Titanic was swapped with its sister ship, the Britannic, as part of an elaborate insurance scam. This hypothesis draws attention to the financial pressures faced by the White Star Line at the time, worsened by fierce competition in the transatlantic shipping industry. Proponents of this theory argue that the two ships were nearly identical, making a switch plausible. Detailed analyses of the ship's blueprints and construction records have been scrutinized for evidence of such a swap, with conspiracy theorists pointing to subtle discrepancies in window configurations and deck layouts as potential clues. They suggest that the Titanic that sank was actually the Britannic, deliberately doomed to allow the ship's owners to collect insurance money. Skeptics of this theory highlight the logistical and ethical implications of executing such a fraud, especially considering the number of workers and crew members who would need to be complicit. While this theory is widely regarded as a conspiracy, the old camera's photos have brought it back into the conversation, inviting a closer examination of the similarities and differences between the two ill-fated liners. The enduring fascination with this theory shows the human desire to seek out sensational explanations for tragic events. Another speculative theory says that the Titanic was brought down by a cursed Egyptian mummy supposedly transported in its cargo hold. The legend claims that the mummy, which was never listed in the ship's cargo manifest and for which there is no historical evidence, unleashed a curse that doomed the ship. This theory, while baseless, contributes to the mystery surrounding the Titanic's fate and reflects the human tendency to seek supernatural explanations for catastrophic events. Chapter 5. Joe Rogan's Strange Prediction. The mystery of the Titanic has yet another curious theory. This one was brought to the forefront by Joe Rogan on his podcast. In an interview with David Portnoy, Joe Rogan brought up how a novel predicted what would happen to the Titanic 14 years before the actual incident occurred. In an eerie foreshadowing of the Titanic's fate, a novel titled Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan, penned by Morgan Robertson, presents a narrative that mirrors the real-life disaster with uncanny precision. Published 14 years before the Titanic embarked on its voyage, Robertson's work tells the tale of the Titan, described as the largest ship of its time, which meets its doom after colliding with an iceberg in the North Atlantic. The parallels between the Titan and the Titanic are not limited to their massive size or their encounters with icebergs. Both were celebrated for their unsinkable nature, and both carried an insufficient number of lifeboats, a detail that tragically contributed to the high casualty rate when the Titanic sank. The novel's depiction of the Titan's disaster, so closely echoing the Titanic's own demise, raises questions about the thin line between fiction and prophecy. This pre-Titanic novel adds a layer of intrigue to the Titanic's story, suggesting that sometimes art imitates life and can also eerily predict it. The existence of such a story before the Titanic tragedy shows that a forewarning did exist, but it wasn't noticed. According to Joe Rogan, this prediction could be more than a mere coincidence. Chapter 6. Strange Discoveries from the Titanic. Apart from the old camera discovered on the ship, the Titanic's wreckage has given up many items, each with its own story. One notable find was Wallace Hartley's violin. Hartley was the band leader on the Titanic, and his violin, discovered in an attic and confirmed by saltwater residue, fetched $1.7 million at auction. Another interesting discovery was the perfume oils of Adolphe Saalfeld, a chemist who was traveling to America with his samples. These were found intact, with some still smelling of the original scents. A menu from the ship's last meal shows what the first-class passengers ate before the tragedy. It's a glimpse into the ship's daily life and its luxury. Recovered sheet music from the ship, including the song "Put Your Arms Around Me, Honey," tells us about the music played in the ship's final moments. This piece of music, from a 1910 Broadway show, was among those displayed at Titanic exhibits. There were also keys found in the wreckage that were used to access lifeboat lanterns. These keys played a critical role during the ship's final hours, as they were used to unlock the lanterns for the lifeboats, aiding in the rescue efforts. Among the items found in the Titanic's debris, a pair of white cotton gloves stands out. These gloves were dubbed as some of the rarest Titanic artifacts ever recovered. They were displayed in various exhibitions before being retired for conservation. But that's not all. Letters written on Titanic stationery also provide a tangible connection to those aboard. A letter penned by first-class passenger Oscar Holverson to his mother, found in his notebook, offers a first-hand account of the Titanic's final day. It's remarkable for being written on Titanic stationery and surviving the sinking, later selling for $166,000 at auction. Another letter, fetching about $200,000, was written by Esther Hart and her daughter Eva on the day of the sinking. Addressed to Esther's mother, it survived because it was in the pocket of her husband's coat, which he gave her to keep warm. Tragically, her husband did not survive, making the letter a bittersweet remembrance of that fateful night. Perhaps the most intriguing finds from the Titanic wreckage is what's been dubbed as the world's most valuable biscuit. This Spillers and Baker's pilot cracker, part of a Titanic lifeboat survival kit, was preserved by a passenger on the Carpathia, the ship that rescued Titanic survivors. Stored in an envelope with the notation, "Pilot biscuit from Titanic lifeboat, April 1912. It fetched $23,000 at an auction in 2015. Each of these items, from Hartley's violin to the lifeboat lantern keys, adds to our understanding of life aboard the Titanic and the events of that fateful night. Chapter 7. Heroes and Legends. Despite all these possible theories, there are real and inspiring stories of people who were on the Titanic during this tragedy. Amid the Titanic's tale, stories of extraordinary courage and resilience emerge that remind us of the undefeated human spirit. Among these are the Titanic's musicians, who, even as the ship sank, played on in an attempt to provide calm and comfort to the panicked passengers. Led by bandmaster Wallace Hartley, this small group of brave souls continued to perform, their music a beacon of hope in the face of impending doom. Their final performance, possibly the hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee," has become legendary, symbolizing the ultimate sacrifice and the power of art to bring solace, even in the darkest moments. Another figure who embodies the Titanic's legacy of bravery is Violet Jessop, known as the unsinkable stewardess. Jessop's life reads like a script from an adventure novel marked by her incredible escapes from maritime disasters. Born to Irish immigrants, Jessop's early life was beset with hardships, which perhaps prepared her for the challenges she would face at sea. Jessop survived the Titanic and the sinking of its sister ship, the Britannic, and a collision involving the Olympic, another sister ship. Her first-hand accounts of these events, particularly the Titanic disaster, offer invaluable perspectives on the human experiences behind historical facts. Despite the traumatic experiences, Jessop continued her career at sea, demonstrating a remarkable love for her profession and an indomitable spirit. Working as a stewardess and nurse, Jessop's experiences provide a unique insight into the maritime disasters of the early 20th century and highlight the often overlooked contributions of female crew members in ensuring passenger safety. The Titanic's passenger list included people from all walks of life, each with their own dreams and stories. One such family was the Goodwins, a working-class family seeking a new beginning in America. Frederick and Augusta Goodwin, along with their 6 children, boarded the Titanic with hopes of a brighter future. Tragically, their dreams were cut short as the entire family perished when the ship sank. Masabumi Hosono, the sole Japanese survivor of the Titanic, also has a story marked by both survival and subsequent stigma. Surviving the sinking was just the beginning of Hosono's ordeal, as he faced criticism and ostracization upon his return to Japan. Cultural expectations of honor and sacrifice meant that Hosono's survival was viewed through a lens of shame, a contrast to the reception of other survivors. Chapter 8. The Aftermath and Legacy. So what was done after the Titanic sank to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again? The sinking led to significant changes in how we approach safety at sea. The disaster highlighted the need for a more unified and stringent approach to maritime safety, transcending national boundaries and regulations. In the wake of the tragedy, the world was forced to re-examine the regulations that had failed to prevent the loss of over 1,500 lives. The realization that such a catastrophe could occur on a ship deemed unsinkable shook public confidence and spurred demand for rigorous safety measures. One of the most immediate outcomes was the convening of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea in 1914. This pivotal convention, attended by representatives from major maritime nations, established a comprehensive set of safety protocols that addressed lifeboat capacity and structural integrity, radio communications, and ice patrol services. This convention led to new safety standards, including the requirement that ships carry enough lifeboats for all passengers and crew, a direct response to the Titanic's lack of sufficient lifeboat capacity. The establishment of the International Ice Patrol was another significant measure, aimed at monitoring iceberg dangers in the North Atlantic, further safeguarding maritime travel against the natural hazards that had doomed the Titanic. Moreover, the disaster prompted changes in maritime communication protocols. The International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea addressed the communication issues from the Titanic incident by establishing 24-hour radio watch on all ships, ensuring that distress signals could be received and acted upon at any time. The story of the Titanic continues to captivate the public imagination more than a century later. Books, films, and documentaries have explored every facet of its journey, from the lives of its passengers to the engineering behind its construction. The discovery of the Titanic wreck in 1985 by Robert Ballard further fueled this fascination, offering a tangible link to the past and sparking debates about the preservation of the site as a memorial to those who lost their lives. The role of the SS Californian remains one of the most controversial aspects of the Titanic disaster. On the night the Titanic sank, the Californian was positioned nearby and saw the distress rockets fired by the sinking ship. However, due to a series of misunderstandings and miscommunications, the Californian did not come to the Titanic's aid. The ship's wireless operator had gone to bed for the night, and the crew did not interpret the rockets as a sign of distress. This missed opportunity for rescue has led to enduring speculation about how many more lives could have been saved if the Californian had responded. The discovery of the old camera at the bottom of the ocean, holding images from over a century ago, adds a new dimension to the Titanic story. This discovery invites us to reflect on the lessons learned from the Titanic. The Titanic's legacy, marked by both human folly and incredible bravery, continues to captivate and educate. Thanks for exploring with us on Beyond Discovery. If you enjoyed these revelations, click now on the next video that pops up on your screen. It's unbelievable.